Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located on planet Earth. It's that time again, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the PulseWave Report with yours truly, the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave Price Trigger Reports. Okay, so I finally had the time to do it. For all of you Pulse Wavers out there, if you go to the chat room, you will see that I have posted a video tutorial based on the last PulseWave report that we did on how to trade the sideways markets. All right, so I pull up today's current report and I show you what I did and how I did it and the reasoning behind it based on what we did the other day. Why does the phone always ring when you're trying to go live? Oh, how annoying to get interrupted right in the middle of a live from a robocall. I thought those things were over with. I thought those times were long behind us. But nope, you still get these robo marketing calls that have nothing to do with your life. Anyhow, so if you go to the PulseWave Trading chat, you will see that I uploaded that video this morning. It's a brief little video just going over today's PulseWave reports and showing you how I positioned myself in the market and what the rationale was behind it and how you can do it and what these sideways market conditions can tend to look like. So I put some pedal to the metal for you on that one. So I don't know if Frank's going to have time to add that to the dashboard, to the educational section of the dashboard just yet, but I did post it under the alerts tab in the trading room. All right. So you guys can check that out when you get a chance. Okay. So we are now a day away from the Fed report, the FOMC. And they're going to be talking about interest rates and talking about the economy. And once again, the thing that they have broken, they're now going to try to talk to us about it. When I say broken, I'm talking about like this morning. The bond futures are negative. So is the Dow, so is the S&P, so is the NASDAQ. The Russell is the only thing that's hanging on by a thread and it's positive. But the bonds are also negative. Normally, you would have a flight to quality, a flight to safety. Stocks dump, bonds catch a bid. But no, that's not what's happening today. Not at all. Likewise, looks like the US dollar is being supported a little bit here. Just barely. It's still at that 90 handle. It did briefly rise above 90, but has fallen back down below it. Another interesting thing today is these grains. Now, the grains did power up again this morning and now have since pulled back from the highs. Case in point, soybeans. Soybeans actually broke and went to 1608 and 3/4, but is now pulled back to 1569 and 3/4. Corn rallied to 720 and a half, but is now pulled all the way back to 690 and 3/4. Wheat rallied to 773 even, and has since pulled back to 741 and 3/4. So once again, we're looking like we're having a bit of a pullback this morning in the grain run, which is expected because it's been so powerful. So we'll see if we get a little deeper pullback here. and if this is just short-term tops that are being placed, or is it something else? I'll be watching those closely, like I told you I would be. I want to see what's going to go on here, what will transpire. So I'm watching it. Not really sure what direction the market wants to take. Was this just, panic or whatever else? Who knows? But I know that we've been debating things in the economy for quite some time. Inflation is the big thing going around. I've been talking to you about it for a while, and we've been tracking these grain markets, and you can see what they've been doing. Last night's end of day report, we took a look at that. And I pulled up for you the daily, weekly, and monthly time frames, and we took a look at where we've been and where we could see ourselves possibly going. So we took a look at all that. But that's not the only thing that's, the big concern. The big concern also is the unintended consequences of the 2020 lockdowns. Devastating effects are starting to emerge that people just didn't think of. Or if they did, then it makes them even more evil because they knew what they were doing. And these are the intended consequences that they wanted. Another agenda that's been pushed forth here, it's like they're taking this opportunity when things are shaky to cram more of their agenda down your throat. So if wokeness wasn't enough for you, they use this opportunity to talk about renewable energy, greenhouse gases, and our dependence on fossil fuels, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And they've even been bringing on scientists that they have bought and paid for to agree and show you charts and graphs where renewables are better and blah, blah, blah. But they don't, once again, they don't allow for the marketplace of ideas. There's no open debate. There's no cross-examination. They will not allow for you to question their narrative, even though they're using scientism, aka junk science, fake science, to further their arguments and their agenda. But we got to really ask these difficult questions. We don't just take things at face value. And the truth of the matter is that the transition to a global energy system that runs on renewable energy rather than finite, i.e., dirty coal or oil and gas, is arguably the number one topic in the media right now because they've moved on. The coronavirus is pulling back. They're not covering that as much. They want to talk about this now. All right. So this right here is being pushed forward in replace of the scamdemic. But for all the jawboning that's going on, it seems that we are nowhere near accomplishing this Camelot transition that they envision for themselves. All right. Now, let's talk about this. Okay. Let's talk about this. Now, speaking on CNBC, a dude named Carol Muffett from the Institute of Environmental Law said, it is not a matter of the absence of the technology or the inability to do it. If you actually look at what are the cheaper sources of the energy supply right now, it is not really even a matter of economics. It is much more about embedded power structures and continued support of dying industry. Notice his choice of words. He says that the renewable technology, renewable energy is cheaper Okay. And he then says that the whole shale oil industry is a dying industry. He used the word dying. Okay. Well, let's break this down. On one hand, it does appear that he's referring to government subsidies for the oil and gas industry in countries such as the United States or the UK, as well as other developing nations. But what he doesn't mention, however, is the fact that the US government and many others also have substantial subsidies for renewable power, along with plans to boost these subsidies in a bid to encourage wider adoption. Again, throwing money at a situation. Consider it a very large marketing campaign with big federal money behind it. But as Muffet puts it, the energy transition is primarily a matter of political will and economic choices. Really? It's a matter of political choices? That makes you say, right? Okay, fine. Matter of political choices. But every reputable energy authority has repeatedly said that it is up to the politicians to make sure the transition occurs by encouraging renewables and discouraging oil and gas. This, however, begs one question. And the question is, if renewables were as economical as their proponents say it is, wouldn't the private sector be embracing them on its own for the sheer profit opportunities that would exist, rather than waiting for the subsidies to be granted before venturing into the field? Really? Does that make logical sense to you? Of course it doesn't. There is also another question. If renewables are the economic choice, why are the emerging, meaning poor economies of Asia investing so heavily in fossil fuel generation capacity that demand for oil there would jump by as much as 25% by 2040, according to Wood Mackenzie? Even China, the indisputable global leader in renewable energy capacity, is building new coal power plants despite celebrations of solar becoming as cheap as coal 2 years ago. These are not questions that the most vocal advocates of renewable energy like to discuss. No, let's don't go there. Let's pretend that doesn't exist. That door doesn't exist. Don't open that door. Don't enter that room. It's dangerous. There's a lion in there. You don't want to go in there. See, they interfere with the narrative that solar and wind are not only emission free, but they are also as cheap as fossil fuels. But if that were the case, it would certainly make fossil fuels irrelevant. After all, if two sources of energy cost the same, but one is renewable and the other one is finite, it would make the best economic sense to bet on the first and not the second, from a purely pragmatic point of view, even without factoring in emissions. Remember, you follow the money. All right. If something is cheaper and going to make me more money versus something being more expensive and then make me less money, would I not be an idiot not to take that money? We talked about this yesterday. It's about getting that bag. It's about the bag, ladies and gentlemen. All right. It's about the money, the cash, all that other stuff. You can miss me with that. It's about the money. If there were truly more money to be made with renewable energy, everybody and their mama would have already jumped on it. There would be no discussion. They wouldn't need the government to come in and give them subsidies to do so. That's like the kid on the corner with the lemonade stand. Well, I know I have the best lemonade in the world, and I have invented lemonade that cures cancer and cures AIDS, destroys the coronavirus. And my lemonade is only going to be on sale for $1. I'm going to set up my stand right now. No, you know what? Better yet, I'm not going to do that. Even though I can make trillions of dollars because I have this patented technology to cure cancer in my lemonade, I'm going to wait for the government to come in and give me subsidy money before I start making money and selling it on my own. You see how stupid and ridiculous that sounds? And yet, poor economies are betting on fossil fuels, while richer economies they're investing billions in renewable energy generation, along with storage capacity and in electric cars. It seems there is a disconnect in the logical sequence of arguments for the energy transition. No? On the one hand, solar and wind are cheaper, and hydrogen and EVs will soon get cheaper, so it would make sense for everyone to get on board with them, right? Yet, on the other hand, wealthy nations are the ones being the most generous with wind and solar adoption and support for hydrogen and EVs. See the situation there? See the problem? Human activity is driving climate change, says Colm Sweeney, the lead scientist for the Earth Systems Research Lab aircraft program of the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's what they told CNBC. They said, if we want to mitigate the worst impacts, it's going to take a deliberate focus on reducing fossil fuels emissions to near zero. And even then, we'll need to look for ways to further remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, he said. Fossil fuel emissions account for the vast majority of greenhouse gas emissions from human activity on the planet. Now, the increase in their use reflects an increase in energy demand, and the world's energy demand is expected to continue to grow as the global population grows, driven once again by emerging economies. Growing energy demand appears to be incompatible with the Paris Agreement targets, given the above factors regarding the cost of different energy sources and their relative reliability, which is motivating investment decisions. So what this means is that the only way we could conceivably expect to progress towards limiting greenhouse gas emissions in any meaningful way is by curbing our energy demand. Indeed, one recent academic report from the UK calls just for that. However, UK Fires, a research program involving scientists from several reputable universities and businesses from resource-intensive sectors, said in the report that net zero was not enough, and we should strive for absolute zero to be achieved, among other measures, by people reducing their energy consumption to 60% of today's levels. That's laughable. So let me get this straight. You're expecting that voluntary energy consumption cuts is just going to happen. It's going to fall out the sky. That's highly unlikely. So this too would require political action. Really? Some are already calling for political action for renewable energy, a form of government abuse. Imagine what they would call policies forcing people to consume less energy than they are used to consuming. You see, that's the problem with, the whole woke movement. It lacks intelligence. It lacks logical thinking and reasonable thinking. It lacks reality. It lacks reality. All right? They don't want to open this up to discussion. They just want to dictate and tell you what is what and what is going to be, and that's it. No input from you, no input from dissenting voices or other scientists. No, no, and no. We're not going to talk about it. You're just going to do what we say. That's what they want you to believe. But here's the problem with their entire argument. Do you know how much money it costs and how much energy you would have to use to create these things? We dealt with windmills a few weeks ago. Y'all remember that? The problem with these windmills that they don't want to talk about, and you're not allowed to even bring it up, and the mainstream media pretends it doesn't exist. Remember the thousands of birds that it kills? Nothing but birds at the bottom of these windmills, so they get all chopped up inside of them. See, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about how expensive it is to manufacture these windmills and how many of these things you would need. Same thing with the solar panels. Do you know how much energy is required to create the solar panels that's needed? They don't want to talk about that. What they want you to think is that the shell industry is a dying industry, which could not be further from the truth, as we just demonstrated. Governments, whether local, state, national, or global, need to stay out of everything and everybody's personal affairs, except protecting the rights of individuals to do as they please with themselves and with the property they create that is rightfully theirs, whether it's energy, food, shelter, clothing, communications, etc., intellectual property, whatever. That means people, individually or collectively, producing whatever kind of energy that fulfills their needs to keep themselves comfortable and transport themselves around, or which they can create to trade with other people in return for other things that they need, the barter system. There's no need for government beyond ensuring that people can live and trade freely with one another. There is no evidence that warming the atmosphere, if it occurs, is detrimental to human lives and prosperity, and certainly not to individual rights. Remember, they want to take away your freedom and property rights. Remember their little slogan. All right, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. All right, they want to take away property rights. They want to take away freedom. Think about it. All right. This is something that we got to think about, ladies and gentlemen. You can't be ignorant to what's going on. Okay. You really can't. And you know what's really funny? Even Bill Gates in his new book acknowledges that this is not a true statement, and there are many technological hurdles to overcome to reach economic parity with fossil fuels. First of all, even if you didn't use fossil fuels for energy, what would you use for energy? You would need energy in order to keep up with industry. It takes energy to create the electric vehicles in the first place. Do you know how much energy is needed? Do you know how much electricity is needed? Just to you don't have enough solar. You can't build enough solar panels to keep enough energy going for industry alone. Wind and solar is not enough. And what do you do when there is no wind? It's not a windy day. What do you do then? What do you do when it's a very cloudy day or a rainy day or it's nighttime? What then? There's no sun. If the clouds are blocking the sun, your solar panels aren't working. If there's no wind, your windmills aren't working. See the problem? Then you want people to cut back pretty much 100% of their energy use. Well, that wouldn't be good, would it? Because then what you're basically saying is the only person that's allowed to have energy consumption is the government and private industry. But individuals, once again, you take their rights and freedoms and property away from them. That means no more Twitter, no more social media, no more YouTube, no more mainstream media, no more television, no more mainstream media, no more iPhones and smartphones or smart devices, because they would take up too much energy. Do you know how much energy it takes just to run the internet alone? You see how this stuff is not practical and not wise? So I'm gonna break it down for you in a nutshell. This has nothing to do with fossil fuels and greenhouse gases. This has to do with control. This is the narrative that they're giving you to believe in so that you will agree to them taking control. Climate change is a Trojan horse for them to take all of your rights and freedoms and property rights away from you. They want to be the only one to have unlimited energy, unlimited property rights, unlimited rights, period. That's what they want. They want everything to be at their disposal and none to be at yours. They want you to have no rights whatsoever. I hope you guys are really getting this. This has nothing to do with greenhouse gases. This has nothing to do with climate change. This is the real Trojan horse to take away rights, freedoms, and privileges permanently. The coronavirus was temporary, but if you allow this whole greenhouse gas, carbon emissions, global warming thing, if you allow them to push this and make this a reality, that's when the world as you know it dies. All right. This is a mass depopulation event. All right. And they will use it to facilitate this transition. They're letting you know this is what we want. This is where we're going. The coronavirus was very successful in giving them absolute authority. Did you notice that absolute authority shifted? It shifted to the medical doctors and, again, the global elite. Who had the most voice? You saw Bill Gates on TV constantly. He's not a medical doctor. He's not. He's not a scientist or a medical doctor. He's a businessman. So they're letting you know who the real authority is in your life. We live in a fascist society, the merging of corporate and government. When situations arise, they let you know who the real power is, the real shadow government, the government behind the government. All right? It's all of their tentacles. What did you see in the last 12 months? You saw the medical industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the military industrial complex. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing the corporations come out and save the day. Governments acting as corporations, corporations acting as government. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is fascism. This is a totalitarian takeover of what remains of your human dignity, civil rights, property rights, freedom as you know it. This is a power grab. It has nothing to do with greenhouse gases. All right. Notice when they're caught red-handed, they try to spin the narrative. We've been hearing about global warming forever, but since the earth is cooling, now they're saying, okay, it's not global warming, it's global cooling. They want to win either way. Even when they're wrong, they say we're right. Okay, well, we're still right. Okay, it's not global warming, but it's still global cooling. So you see how I got you, global cooling. We're not going to burn up. We're going to freeze to death. Either way, either we're going to burn up or we're going to freeze to death. How about that? That's what they want you to believe. They can spin it any way they want because they control the narrative and they control the outlet. They control the information. They control the internet. They control the mainstream media. They control the information. They control the narrative. And they can shut out voices of dissent that they don't want you to hear. Okay? Think about it. I just read and quoted you articles from a lawyer. What does a lawyer have to do with science? Nothing. So ask yourself a question. Why is he being allowed to have a platform and speak and being quoted? I'll tell you why. Because this is about law. It has nothing to do about science. Law is about power. Who has the power to enact the law? Who has the power to enforce the law? It's not you and me. It's the fascistic entity that exists today. They create the laws that they want you to follow, but then they exempt themselves from those same laws. They have absolute power, absolute authority, and they go unchallenged. And they create and write laws and loopholes from themselves to give themselves immunity from this. Look at what just happened with the coronavirus vaccines. Every pharmaceutical company was given diplomatic immunity, free from prosecution, free from being held liable. And then they even retroactivated it to before the coronavirus thing came out. See where I'm going with this? This is dastardly, folks. People need to wake up and see what's really going on. Gotta wake up, man. Gotta wake up, because we're getting really late now. I told you yesterday we're in the top of the ninth. All right? Time is ticking. All right? Less fossil fuels equals less people. Enter the vaccines to call the peasants. They make sure you don't hear about the deaths that come out. And when they do try to get in front of it, they spin it. They'll say, well, 6 people out of 6 million died. They lowball you. They don't want you to know the real number of people dying from the vaccine. So they deny. They control the narrative. They control the platform. No one else gets to talk. They control the platform. They give you what they want you to think. Like the saying goes, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Well, this is them giving you your opinion. All right. We know that oil is in everything that we use. All right. Plastics are everywhere. Everywhere. There's no getting around it. You need that oil. You need that plastic. It's everywhere. It's in your car. It's in your home, your smartphone, your computer, your tablet. It's everywhere. It's in medicines. It's everywhere. Everywhere. Okay? Just saying. All right? Just wake up, folks. All right? PulseWaveTrading.com. Remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out. Peace.